Margaret had always believed in the sanctity of family. At 72, with silver hair swept elegantly back and emerald earrings that caught the afternoon light, she carried herself with quiet dignity. She'd raised her daughter Rachel with old-fashioned values, honesty, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond of family. That's why what happened that Tuesday afternoon shattered her world completely. Margaret was visiting Rachel's home, a sprawling colonial in the suburbs where Rachel lived with her husband of 8 years, Thomas. Margaret had never quite warmed to Thomas. There was something calculated behind his charming smile, something that made her maternal instincts whisper warnings. That day, those whispers became screams. It started with a simple question about finances. Rachel had seemed stressed lately, distracted. When Margaret gently asked if everything was all right, Thomas's expression darkened like storm clouds rolling in. "Actually, Margaret, there's something we need to discuss," he said, his voice cold as winter steel. What came next happened so fast, yet felt like slow motion. Words were exchanged, sharp and cutting. Margaret tried to defend Rachel, to calm the situation. Then Thomas moved toward her, his face twisted with rage. The blow sent her crashing to the hardwood floor. Pain exploded through her hip, her shoulder. She lay there, stunned, unable to process that this had actually happened. Rachel's scream cut through the air. Her daughter rushed to her side, but Thomas grabbed Rachel's arm, yanking her back. In the struggle, Rachel managed to break free and helped her mother up. Margaret's legs trembled as Rachel supported her weight, guiding her toward the door. But Thomas wasn't finished. He blocked their path, his face contorted with fury. "You're not going anywhere until we settle this. That inheritance money from your father, Margaret, the $3 million you've been sitting on, it's time to share it with family, real family." So that was it. The money her late husband had worked his entire life to save. The security she'd planned to leave for Rachel and someday, grandchildren. "Get out," Rachel hissed, her voice shaking but fierce. "Get out of this house, mother, please." Margaret stumbled toward the door, her hips screaming with each step. Behind her, she heard Thomas's bitter laugh. "Go ahead, run. But remember, Margaret, once you leave, you're choosing sides. And we all know how this ends." What Thomas didn't know was that Mrs. Patterson from next door had been watering her roses by the fence. She'd heard the shouting, seen Rachel dragging her mother out by her hair when Margaret lost her footing again on the porch steps. Mrs. Patterson's hands had shaken as she dialed 911, her voice urgent but clear. The police arrived within minutes, their sirens cutting through the quiet suburban afternoon. Neighbors emerged onto porches, curiosity drawing them like moths to flame. Margaret sat in her car, Rachel beside her, both women trembling. They watched as officers approached the house, watched as Thomas answered the door with that same charming smile, as if nothing had happened. But the evidence was damning. Margaret's torn blouse, the bruise already blooming purple on her shoulder. Mrs. Patterson's eyewitness account. Rachel's tearful statement confirming what her mother couldn't bear to say. Thomas was arrested. Right there on his pristine lawn, with the whole neighborhood watching. In the weeks that followed, the truth emerged like water seeping through cracks. Thomas had been having an affair with a woman from his office. He'd been planning to divorce Rachel and take half of everything, including any inheritance money he could claim as marital assets. Rachel filed for divorce immediately. The legal process was messy, painful. Friends took sides. Family gatherings became minefields of tension. But something else happened too. Something Margaret hadn't expected. Rachel moved back home with her mother, not out of obligation, but choice. In the quiet evenings, they'd sit together on the porch, sipping tea as fireflies danced in the twilight. They talked about everything, filling in gaps years of busy lives had created. "I should have listened to you about him," Rachel said one evening, her voice soft with regret. Margaret took her daughter's hand, her grip still strong despite arthritis. "We see what we want to see, sweetheart, especially when we're in love, or what we think is love. How do you know the difference?" Rachel asked. Margaret was quiet for a long moment, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. "Real love doesn't demand. It doesn't manipulate or strike or threaten. Real love protects. It builds up rather than tears down. The divorce was finalized on a gray November morning. Thomas got the house and half the marital assets, but nothing from Margaret's inheritance. Rachel's lawyer had been thorough. On the courthouse steps afterward, Rachel turned to her mother. "He lost so much more than money," she said. "He lost integrity, respect, peace of mind, while we gained something he'll never understand." Margaret understood. They'd gained each other back, not as the mother and daughter who'd maintained polite distance, but as true companions who'd walked through fire together. The bruises faded. Margaret's hip healed, but the lessons remained, carved deep as canyon walls. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't elaborate schemes or bitter vengeance. It's healing. It's choosing peace over chaos, dignity over degradation. It's building a life so fulfilling that those who tried to destroy you become footnotes in your story rather than chapters. Margaret kept her $3 million. She also gained something far more precious: the rest of her years spent in genuine closeness with her daughter, unburdened by pretense or toxic relationships. And Thomas, he remarried quickly to that woman from his office. Margaret heard through mutual acquaintances that he seemed perpetually dissatisfied, always chasing something just out of reach. Some people, Margaret realized, would never understand that the greatest wealth isn't counted in bank accounts. It's measured in peaceful mornings, honest conversations, and love that doesn't come with conditions. On Rachel's 45th birthday, they sat together on that same porch, older now but lighter somehow. "Thank you," Rachel said suddenly, "for that day, for being strong enough for both of us." Margaret smiled, her emerald earrings catching the light. "Darling, you were the strong one. You chose truth over comfort. That takes courage most people never find." They sat in comfortable silence as evening settled around them like a soft blanket. Two women who'd survived betrayal and violence, who'd chosen healing over bitterness, and who'd discovered that sometimes the worst days lead to the most beautiful transformations. The neighbors had stopped watching long ago. The scandal had faded into neighborhood lore, just another story people told at dinner parties. But for Margaret and Rachel, it remained something sacred. The day their lives fell apart, and they chose, together, to rebuild them into something better than before. That was the real victory. Not revenge, but renewal. Not bitterness, but grace. And in the end, that made all the difference.